Good evening. How are you doing? Is everything going well? That's great to hear. This is one of the aspects that sets us apart, for instance. Giving impromptu presentations like this comes relatively effortlessly to me, as I have mastered the art of speaking without relying on a written script. For those who claim that I speak too quickly, I would suggest increasing your pace to keep up. Okay? If I speak too fast, you have to speed up. I'll tell you why. Because those you deal with are always one step ahead of you anyway. And the perpetrators have no regard for you because you are victims. If you can't follow me, you've lost. Okay? So, I didn't come here to make friends. I am an independent journalist. That means independent. I am relatively self-sufficient. I don't care about public opinion. Who can say that as a journalist? Or who among you can say that you don't care about public opinion? Most of you are trapped in a system where you depend on at least your neighbors or those where you work to think well of you. I said goodbye to it for a long time. Because the moment you do that, you make a kind of consensus. You say things that you don't believe yourself because you think the other person would believe the same thing, but he doesn't believe that either. That is our dilemma. What can the individual actually do? Because it's 22. This event is called an election, and I've already openly stated that I am not a voter, which doesn't mean that I don't vote. I'm an extremely active Democrat, but I'm not voting in this federal election, and I used to advertise for Wallomap. I want to upset you. I want you to get really mad. You can get mad at me too, I don't care. But the main thing is that you use your brain and do something different that you've always done. You do something self-sufficient, solo. I think it's great that there are so many people here. But just because there are more of them doesn't mean they're right. Most people expect some kind of answers from us standing here on this podium. They don't need answers from me. You all already know the answers, and you're waiting for us to do it collectively. This is a mistake. You have to do this alone, and there may be someone behind you. But if you wait until someone has to be behind you to start walking, then you've already lost. Yes, okay? In the last few days, I've had to have a lot of conversations with friends and relatives who always ask me questions. I heard you choose. What should I choose? The word lesser evil comes up. This is up to here, okay? That's it for me so far. I would just like to briefly introduce you to a book. I accidentally found this in my bookcase by Susan George. Maybe one or the other knows. Co-founded ATT and CK, political scientist, going strong towards the 80. The book was published in German in 2006, so you can buy it there at Booklooker for $6.98. So it costs less than football books with fingers on them. Everyone has the money. And I just want to briefly read you a part of a blurb because that's what this is about. It's about what's happening around us. And Susan George writes in the blurb, all you really need to do is read the blurb. The book is well structured and you will understand a lot afterwards. But the blurb is actually enough. That's the only thing I'm going to read today. Here is what it says, said by a top American manager. I would define globalization as the freedom for my company to intervene, invest where and when it wants, and to advocate for the lowest possible restrictions through labor and social laws. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And these people are lining up at 22 to the election, and people like you are seriously considering whether to go there. What's actually wrong with you? That they seriously consider choosing the lesser evil, whichever party that should be. No matter which party they vote for, which may have fewer votes, it will become corrupt on the way up. Do not you understand? Why? Because people can't handle power. I don't know what would become of me if I had this job. I advise you, don't give it to me. Yes, don't give it to me. Keep the job. Decide for yourself what happens and don't try to rule over your family, but rather build a social system with them, if that's not already the case. What is so difficult to understand about that? Is that complicated? What is the lesser evil? You can still go there. I would like to give you 2 or 3 examples to make it clear to you what many of you are still thinking. I think it's the International Motor Show again, right? That's right, Jürgen, isn't it? IAA. If you go to the IAA, and I tested this, and I want to protect the environment, then I'll go there, and I'll go with a smaller car. Smaller engine, 3 liters, maybe also with electricity, then a range extender, but it will be a car, is that correct? But I came with a bicycle. Isn't that much more environmentally friendly? No, not for the auto industry. And if you want to protect the environment, you should buy a car. Otherwise, you are sitting against the environment. You can only protect the environment if you go to the IAA when you buy a car. That's what the experts tell you everywhere. Attic, everyone can confirm that to you. You don't know anything about cars. Are you coming with a bicycle and want to explain to the IAA how to protect the environment? Buy a car! Or, if you want to do something for the Italian on your street who still cooks, all the grits without glutamate, Monsanto-free food, what do you have to do? Then every 4 years you go to McDonald's and sort out the entire menu, but then you don't eat it. So you invalidate your slip. You buy the menu. The money is in the cash register. And your protest note is, you don't eat it then. And you'll see what you get out of it at McDonald's. As long as they buy the product, that's it. What they do afterwards doesn't give a shit. That's all I want to say to voters. Political parties used to be a good idea, but the moment millions of people vote and concentrate power in the hands of a few, they are putting a nuclear bomb in those people's hands. And they can't handle it. And when you look at the election posters out there, no matter who they are and you together successfully, then you have to ask yourself the question, what is wrong with you that one of these posters is still hanging? Why are they still hanging? I can tell you that. It can be done with you. People can tell you this shit. You don't know what success they're talking about. But you think someone has to choose it? This person doesn't exist. Nobody notices the success. There is already this group where success is there, but you are never part of it. And you seriously consider choosing the lesser evil. And I spoke to someone earlier who was seriously thinking about going to the event with Angela Merkel on Saturday and listening to it and then getting upset. Why? Why are you doing that? Why do you let Peer Steinbrück, a man with 130 euro ties, who has rolled up his sleeves and wants to be a social democrat, who earned his money from the banks, who bashed 92 billion, be fooled? As finance minister and that of Hyporeal, why are you letting this man explain to you how we can get out of this banking mess? What do they actually put in your tea? What comes to mind spontaneously? I don't see anything on the election posters. What about Eurohawk? What about Eurohawk? What about Plagiarism Affair 1, if you want to remember? There was something. Plagiarism Affair 2, Poverty Report falsified. And there is also this NSA, which continues to run. The Office for the Protection of the Constitution is involved. And Pofalla, who you probably don't even know, stands up and says, I'm declaring this over. Are you seriously thinking about going to this event? Stop it! It's your fault that this continues because you confirm it. This is McDonald's. And if you go there and buy and pay for your meal, it doesn't matter if you eat it. Did they understand that? It's not that difficult. I interviewed a 10-year-old girl last night because I despair of you, okay? Despair of it. I just talked to her about it, abstractly about the metaphor. What elections mean. I said to her, listen, how old are you? 10 years. Okay, what can you actually determine at home? Yes, little. I say, can you choose which car your parents drive? No. Can you choose which school you go to? No. Where are you going on vacation? You can make suggestions there. Okay. And can you enforce it? No. This means that if your parents decide things, you have to do them. Then the girl says to me, yes, but only 8 more years. She's 10, right? I'll put it online tomorrow, yeah, so you can take a look at it. And say, why? Yes, I'm 18. And then what? Then I can decide for myself. I say, aha! You have to wait another 8 years? Then you can decide for yourself. And then will you stay with your parents? No, that doesn't work. This means that she could then stay with her parents, but then the parents would still have control over her. Then she would have to move out. And so I asked the question that many people ask themselves when they choose whether they couldn't be combined. Be 18, do whatever you want, and stay with your mom. No, that wouldn't work. The parents could not decide everything about them, but they could decide which guests came, when they went to bed, and so on. So you have to get out there and do it. And here I ask the question that you constantly ask me. So if you don't go to this election, many people ask me the question, what happens next? My navigation device broke today. I no longer knew how to get out of my own street. What happens next then? I just drove out. But once you get used to it, it's difficult, right? There are people who drive straight into the lake because the navigation device says go straight, in the area where they know their way around. And we're calling them to court. The GPS said so. So this child asks me, yes, I ask the child, how do you want to do it? Then you're an adult for the first time. You've never been an adult. And do you know what that kid said to me? And the scene, you can't avoid it in life. The scene. That means a 10-year-old girl from the street has a complete understanding of what politics means. You have to move out of mom's house and take care of it yourself. And I asked her, yes, are you ready to fall on your face for this too? She says all that. Yes, of course. I want to make my own mistakes. I didn't come here to do what others tell me. You can't avoid it. That's not the job we have, that we're shirking it. Is it so hard to understand when 10-year-olds understand it? We all express ourselves by giving our vote to a party system that we all no longer believe in. The idea was good. But everyone sitting there is a lobbyist, a representative who has been told, listen, if you come in here and say what we want to hear, you'll get a really cool position. And that's how they get the people. Money doesn't matter. What do you want to have? A house in the DC, a motor chase, 10 euros? Do we have? Money is not the problem. This means that if you give your vote to a party, even the lesser evil, you cannot achieve anything there. You have to become self-sufficient and independent. And what do you have to do for it? You just have to be normal. You don't need the FDP to park in the morning, do you? Do any of you need the CDU because you don't know how much pocket money you want to give your daughter? It all works. Why do you think that you have to vote for parties every 4 years so that they can solve problems for you, which you always say after 4 years that unfortunately it didn't work? Because the problems that we were told 4 years ago exist are not our problems. They are problems that were invented for us. Which of these problems have disappeared? Are we less hungry in this world? They're all experts who do this, right? I'm not a professional. I'm not an expert. Are there fewer arms exports? Or are there fewer systemically important banks? Does this banking system still exist? Isn't it the case that after the election it will be opened that this will happen with the Greek haircut? Unfortunately, it couldn't be avoided. And that everything goes on like this, and then it goes on like this with Greece, then it goes on with Spain. Isn't that the case? You already know that, right? I read you today at Spiegel Online that Steinbrück, who won't be one, is already negotiating the grand coalition with Merkel. That means you already know that. Why do you always go to the same James Bond movie? With a very bad ending. If it were at least done well, then I could understand you, but these are really bad gags. And that is the question I ask you. The fact that these parties exist also has a function for you. The function is that if you cast your vote there and they offer you things that you may or may not want, but that you can't get there, you're out of the loop. Because they wanted to drive fewer SUVs, they wanted less nuclear power, they wanted to eat less meat, but the CDU didn't even propose that or couldn't enforce it, and that's why they can't do it. Because only when the party proposes it can they do it. None of them can say, I'm giving up meat. They now need their go-ahead from Angela Merkel. Is that right? Or is that not correct? That is the moment you stop on this 22. If you wait until September and start immediately, it will be your own fault if things don't work out. And a lot of things won't work out. You always have to start over. Because, quote, you can't avoid it in life. And you know what makes me despair? I see this entire system which stretches across the globe as a kind of Titanic.